The more chances people get to watch George Lombard Jr. this spring, the harder it becomes to ignore what kind of talent the Yankees might have developing right in front of them. Every game he steps into seems to reveal another detail about his potential, and it is not just flashes anymore. It has started to look like a young player who understands a moment, understands a competition, and most importantly, understands how to compete against elite pitching. One of the biggest examples came recently when Lombard stepped into the batter's box against Garrett Crochet, a pitcher who is widely considered one of the toughest arms in baseball right now. Even though it is still spring training and pitchers are working through their routines, facing someone of that caliber is never easy, especially for a young prospect trying to prove himself. But Lombard did not look overwhelmed at all. In fact, he looked completely comfortable. Right out of the gate, he delivered a leadoff home run against Crochet, setting the tone immediately and showing that he was not intimidated by the matchup. Later in that same game, he added a single against him as well, which only reinforced the impression that this was not a lucky swing or a momentary flash. Lombard looked composed at the plate, reading the ball well and making solid contact. For a young player still carving out his path through the system, those kinds of moments carry a lot of weight. Of course, nobody is pretending that spring training performances automatically translate into regular season dominance. Pitchers are still fine-tuning their mechanics, building stamina, and experimenting with different pitches. But even with that context, it is still extremely encouraging when a young hitter steps in against one of the best pitchers in the division and handles himself the way Lombard did. It suggests maturity, confidence, and the kind of mental approach that organizations love to see from their top prospects. And that confidence is especially important when you remember how last season unfolded for him. Lombard had a solid stretch with Hudson Valley, where his offensive numbers were strong enough to earn him a promotion to Double-A. Once he reached that level, however, things became more challenging. The pitching was tougher, the adjustments were harder, and by the end of the year, his on-base plus slugging percentage finished around .694. That is not disastrous for a young player adjusting to a new level, but it certainly was not the breakout many were hoping to see. What never disappeared, though, was his defensive value. No matter where the coaching staff placed him on the field, Lombard consistently showed impressive instincts and athleticism. He has spent time at third base, second base, and shortstop this spring, and every time he looks comfortable. That kind of versatility is extremely valuable for any organization, but the way he moves at shortstop in particular has caught a lot of attention. Watching him there, it is easy to imagine a future where he eventually becomes the Yankees' long-term answer at that position. His footwork is clean, his reactions are quick, and he shows the kind of arm strength needed to make difficult throws from deep in the infield. It is still early in his development, but the natural tools are clearly there. More than anything, what stands out is the maturity in his overall approach. Lombard does not look like a player pressing to prove himself. Instead, he looks like someone who understands that development is a process. Even after struggling in Double-A last year, he has come into spring training looking focused and prepared rather than frustrated or overwhelmed. So far, the numbers support that impression. In his first dozen at-bats this spring, Lombard collected 4 hits, which puts his batting average at .333. Along with that home run, he has driven in 6 runs while also showing good discipline at the plate with 5 walks compared to only 3 strikeouts. Those are encouraging signs for a young hitter, especially when plate discipline is often one of the hardest skills to develop early in a professional career. For the Yankees organization, seeing their top prospect perform with that level of confidence is exactly what they want. Spring training is often about evaluating young players and seeing who might be ready to take the next step. Lombard is clearly making his case that he belongs in that conversation. The hope now is that this momentum carries into the upcoming Double-A season with Somerset. If Lombard can take what he is showing in spring training and translate it into consistent production during the regular season, his trajectory through the minor leagues could accelerate quickly. The raw talent has never been in doubt, but consistency will ultimately determine how fast he climbs. And when you look at his age, there is still plenty of room for growth. Lombard remains one of the younger players at his level, which makes his flashes of performance even more intriguing. If he can put together a strong campaign this year, there's a very real chance that his name starts appearing more frequently in conversations about the Yankees' future infield. It is not unrealistic to imagine a scenario where he pushes his way through the system faster than expected. When a player combines defensive versatility, athleticism, and developing offensive production, organizations tend to move them aggressively. Lombard has the kind of profile that could allow him to do exactly that if everything clicks. There's also another interesting dynamic inside the Yankees farm system involving players like Roderick Arias, another highly regarded young talent. Conversations about the future of the infield often include both names, and it will be fascinating to see how their development paths unfold over the next couple of seasons. But right now the spotlight is firmly on Lombard and the impression he is making this spring. Every time he steps on the field, he seems to be sending a quiet message that he is getting closer to being ready for the next challenge. It is not about hype or bold predictions at this stage. It is about steady progress, confident play, and the kind of performances that make people inside the organization start paying closer attention. While George Lombard Jr. has been grabbing a lot of attention this spring, he is not the only young Yankee generating discussion. Another name that keeps coming up almost every single day is Jasson Dominguez. If you've been following the games closely, it really feels like every time he steps into the batter's box, something positive happens. Whether it is a clean base hit, a hardline drive, or a well-worked at-bat, Dominguez has been showing the kind of offensive rhythm that reminds everyone why the organization has believed in him for so long. There's a noticeable difference in the way he approaches his at-bats right now. He looks calmer, more balanced, and much more selective with the pitches he chooses to attack. Even in situations where the result is not a hit, you can see the quality of the contact improving. There was a moment recently against Garrett Crochet where Dominguez batted from the right side of the plate, which has always been the side people watch closely. Instead of trying to do too much, he stayed on the pitch and sent the ball the other way. It ended up as a fly out, but the approach itself was encouraging. For a hitter who is constantly working to refine his swing from that side, simply putting together a controlled opposite field swing against a high-level pitcher is a good step forward. Despite that, there is still a reality that many fans may not want to hear. Dominguez is very unlikely to be on the opening day roster. It is not necessarily a reflection of his performance or his talent. The situation is more about the roster structure and the financial commitments the Yankees have already made in their outfield. When an organization invests heavily in established players, those players are going to receive the opportunity to start the season on the field. Because of that, the most logical scenario is that Dominguez begins the year playing every day in Triple-A with Scranton. From a development standpoint, that might actually be the best thing for him. Getting consistent at-bats, staying locked into a daily routine, and continuing to sharpen his approach at the plate could put him in a perfect position if an opportunity opens up later in the season. And in baseball, those opportunities almost always arrive eventually. Injuries happen. Slumps happen. Sometimes a roster adjustment becomes necessary simply because another player is performing too well to ignore. If Dominguez goes down to Triple-A and continues hitting the way many expect him to, the conversation around him could become impossible to overlook. However, he is not the only young outfielder waiting for that kind of moment. Spencer Jones is also in the mix, and his presence adds another layer to the competition within the organization. Jones brings a slightly different profile, especially when it comes to defense and center field. His range and physical tools in that position are extremely impressive, and that could factor into future decisions if the Yankees ever need to choose between the two in certain situations. What makes the comparison interesting is the difference in experience. Dominguez may be younger, but he has already tasted the major leagues. Those appearances, even if limited, still provide valuable exposure to the speed and pressure of the highest level of baseball. Jones, meanwhile, continues building his case through his development path, showing flashes of power and athleticism that make evaluators excited about his ceiling. So if a roster spot were to open during the season, the Yankees could find themselves evaluating which player fits their immediate needs better. In some scenarios, Dominguez's offensive upside might be the deciding factor. In others, Jones's defensive ability in center field might become the priority. It is the kind of internal competition that organizations actually welcome because it pushes both players to keep improving. Meanwhile, the situation involving Trent Grisham is also something people are watching closely this spring. His early numbers have not looked very impressive. In his first 14 at-bats, his batting average has been sitting around 71, which is obviously far from ideal. At the same time, it is important to remember what spring training truly represents for veteran players. These games are often more about preparation than results. Hitters are adjusting their timing, experimenting with different approaches, and simply trying to get their bodies ready for the grind of the regular season. Because of that, a small stretch of poor numbers in March does not necessarily mean anything once the real games begin. Still, it is understandable why fans keep an eye on those statistics. When a player struggles at the plate, especially early on, the conversation naturally shifts toward the younger talents waiting behind him. In this case, both Dominguez and Spencer Jones represent potential alternatives if the situation ever demands change. Of course, nobody inside the organization wants to see that scenario happen because of poor performance. Ideally, Grisham would settle into the lineup and deliver a strong season, giving the Yankees stability in the outfield while the younger players continue developing at their own pace. That would be the best case for everyone involved. But baseball rarely unfolds exactly the way people expect. If the season moves into the summer months and offensive production becomes an issue, the Yankees will have options to consider. A player hitting around 190 or even 200 over an extended stretch would eventually force the front office to evaluate other possibilities. That is where Dominguez could enter the picture again. If he is dominating Triple-A pitching and showing consistent improvement, the pressure to bring him up would grow significantly. The organization knows the kind of energy he can bring when he is locked in at the plate, and his presence could quickly change the dynamic of the lineup. Another aspect that has been discussed internally is his defensive positioning. Dominguez has spent most of his professional career playing center field, and that remains his natural position. However, the Yankees have also experimented with him in left field to create flexibility within the roster. Manager Aaron Boone has indicated that he is not completely opposed to using Dominguez in center field if the situation requires it, even though the preference might be to keep him in left under normal circumstances. Sometimes a player simply performs better when he returns to the position where he feels most comfortable. Baseball history is full of examples where defensive adjustments helped unlock better overall performance. A player might struggle while adapting to a new spot on the field, only to rediscover his rhythm once he returns to familiar territory. The Yankees understand that balance. They value versatility, but they also recognize the importance of confidence and comfort for young players still developing their identities at the major league level. That is why the coming months could be so important for Dominguez as he continues refining every aspect of his game while waiting for the next opportunity to arrive. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. A wave of speculation is rippling through the clubhouse after Yankees manager Aaron Boone confirmed that a starting player from the team has been disciplined internally, a decision that immediately fueled rumors about tension behind scenes. Boone's brief acknowledgement came during a routine media availability, but the lack of details only intensified the intrigue surrounding the situation. The manager made it clear that the organization had taken action, describing it as a matter handled in-house, while declining to reveal the identity of the player or the exact nature of the punishment. That silence has quickly become the center of conversation among observers and fans. Inside baseball circles, whispers began circulating almost immediately. Some suggest the issue could stem from a violation of team rules, while others believe it may be related to a disagreement within the clubhouse. There are even theories that the discipline followed a heated moment tied to competitive frustrations, though none of those claims have been confirmed. What adds to the mystery is the fact that Boone specifically referred to the punished athlete as a regular starter, a description that narrows the field considerably. The Yankees lineup features several high-profile names who carry significant responsibilities both offensively and defensively, and the idea that one of them may have crossed an internal line has sparked intense debate. Those familiar with the organization insist Boone is known for maintaining a steady and protective approach toward his players. For that reason, the manager's willingness to publicly confirm that disciplinary action occurred has led some insiders to believe the situation might have been serious enough that it could not be ignored. For now, the Yankees remain tight-lipped, and the clubhouse doors appear firmly closed on the matter. Until more information surfaces, the story lives in the realm of rumor and interpretation, the kind that often surround the team under the bright lights and constant scrutiny that follow baseball's most famous pinstripes. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.